This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case may be. Welcome to our OES Business Sector Excellence webinar. This is a continuing series of our excellence webinars that we've done for the government or public sector. We've also done one for the education sector, and this is our third in a continuing series. This is Business Sector Excellence. Our speaker today that's going to go through this for about an hour, and then we'll have time for question and answer, is Dawn Ringrose. Dawn is the current head of our organizational excellence specialist organizations known as OES. My name is Dale Weeks. I am a registered OES specialist, and I've known Dawn for probably 10 or more years now in relationship to the building of this OES excellence approach. She has championed this for over 10 years now. She's got 30 some years of experience as management consultant and lots of involvement and practicing what she preaches in terms of excellence. So we're very pleased to have Dawn go through this session today. And if you have any questions, please put your questions in the chat box, and I will monitor this as we go along. If we've got something really urgent, we will pause, but however, most likely we will wait until we have the questions in the last 30 minutes or so of a session. So that's where we're going today, and it's all yours, Dawn. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Dale. Today, I'm really talking about a topic that I'm pretty passionate about, and that's excellence in business. And just prior to the session, we were talking about business and how, so many business organizations in each of our countries are small organizations, and we really need to pay attention to that 90% of organizations in the business sector in any economy, and make sure that they're performing well, because in order for them to survive on an entrepreneurial front, or in order for them to develop and grow and become medium size and large size, we need to follow good practices that we know work, and those are practices common to high performing organizations. So with that, we're gonna just share a few interesting points about being in business and characteristics of business, and talk about a method that we can use to strengthen businesses. So absolutely critically important, as I said, to any economy. You think about businesses and the role they play, in terms of creating jobs and developing new products and services, using technology, trying to be more efficient and effective, exchanging ideas around the globe, trading with others, providing confidence to investors, and really contributing to the country's brand image. And people, start businesses for a variety of different reasons. I myself have been involved in starting and operating a number of businesses, and of course been an employee of businesses as well when I was originally starting my career, and I worked with the big consulting accounting firms. And so we're all starting businesses for different reasons, but as entrepreneurs, I think we're recognizing that there's opportunities out there. We're prepared to take risks and invest in our business ventures, and ready to compete or collaborate out there in the marketplace, to partner with others and contribute to the gross domestic product in our countries. And I think, as I reflect on that, people start businesses for all sorts of different reasons. Some want to have freedom, some want to make a difference in the world, some want to build great wealth, continue a family tradition, and earn a living because jobs are scarce. These are things that were noted in the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor back in the 2021 global report. And when you think about entrepreneurs, really they make our life easier, because you think about all the products that we use and the services that are available. This is all based on the ingenuity, the creativity, the innovative thinking of entrepreneurs. And being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. I can say that firsthand. And knowing years and years ago, I worked with we did a conference presentation with a group of us, and one of those people was the person that was leading the incubator in Sweden, one of the best business incubators in the world. And he was talking about just how long it takes for a business to get up and running and become profitable. And it's much longer than what we traditionally thought was the 8 years. They were saying that it's more like sometimes it's more like 17 years. So I mean, entrepreneurs really have to hang in there, and make sure that they've got adequate funding and good management skills if they're to survive, because those are two of the reasons sometimes why businesses don't survive. It's due to poor management and inadequate funding, and they just can't hang in there. And we know by the research that's out there that 20% of small businesses fail within the first year. And if you take a look at the second year, that creeps up to 30%. Fifth year, about half will have failed. And by the end of a decade, about 70% would have failed. So it's a really low success rate, when you think about it. And those are statistics, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as reported by Fundera. So what do we do? How do we make sure that businesses get off to a good start and have a better chance of survival, and can prosper and grow and develop the products and services that they offer to society? Because really, when you think about it, if we think about our economy is made up of government, nonprofit, and businesses are the ones that are bringing new products and services, and usually new technologies to the table. And they're pretty darn important to any economy in terms of people that they're employing and taxes they're contributing and so forth. So we want to make sure that we keep this sector strong. So the questions that we have today for businesses is number one, how do you measure up? We know that only 10 to 20% of the working population even knows about excellence models. So this is part of this, is making people more aware of it so they can use something to their advantage that's really going to make a difference. So great place to start is, how do you measure up to an excellence model, and how do you measure up to some other really important indices that we have here to share with you today, from the OECD and also from the Social Progress Index. And this allows us to ask ourselves too, well, how do you compare? How do you compare to others? And then thirdly, well, what can you learn from others? And we'll talk about a few high performing organizations that have been recognized by national award programs, and these are just a very small percentage of high performing organizations, because we know that most leaders don't pursue a national award. About 90% of them just want to improve performance. So we can do our work in learning from those organizations that have become high performing. But easily accessible to us are those that have earned national excellence awards, because they're published, by the award bodies. So let's start with the Social Progress Index. This is a wonderful index that was created a number of years ago, and allows us to take a look at individual countries, and taking a look at the conditions that are available to all citizens to help them reach their full potential. And leaders across sectors can use it to really understand the strengths and the vulnerabilities of their communities. And I took a look at Canada's profile, and I'll share a little bit of that with you in a little while. But every time we do work in a different country, I always like to take a look at their profile on the Social Progress Index, because It takes a look at 12 components and 60 indicators that are used to measure the social performance of countries. And they're tracking this in about 169 countries fully, and an additional 27 countries partially. And it's really, really great information. But as we look at our progress using this index since 2011, we're able to better understand the strides we're making and where we're falling behind. And it gives us a really good picture around the world about how people are living and what their needs are, and how they're being provided for, and what needs to happen to improve that quality of life for people. And this year's index, or the 2022 index, highlights that there might be social progress recession coming. It shows that the world, over time since 2011 has improved marginally, but in the last 5 years, it's fallen back or slowed a little bit, and that is probably as a result of the COVID pandemic and government response to that, risks posed by economic turbulence and political change and the whole host of things that affect our economies. But one of the biggest concerns really is the decline in personal rights. That's something that's fallen, a number of points, about 5 points, and we've seen that decline in countries that are kind of walking backwards, which is unfortunate. And even amongst three of the G7 countries, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. And so it's troubling, you know. Um, it's something that's important to mention here. Here's some of the statistics from 2011 to 2022 that shows, where things have improved, and then where things are stagnating or declining, and this sometimes gives us ideas about what else we can be doing in our communities. And just make sure all the participants on the call today, make sure your mic is off, just so we don't pick up any background noise, please. Thank you. If I take a look at Canada's scorecard, and I'm holding it in my hands right here because it's hard to, it wouldn't be able to see it on the screen. But as I take a look at the scorecard, I'm taking a look at the things that are rated low. Do you know? And so ask ourselves, what can business do to help ratings? And things that are troubling in Canada are child mortality rate, access to improved sanitation, shelter, because there's real dissatisfaction with housing affordability here, interpersonal violence, crime with money being stolen, mobile phone subscriptions. There's young people not in education, employment, or training. Equal protection index is low. Access to public services distributed by social groups. And so, let's just pick, one of these as and ask ourselves, this is, some of these things that can be handled by the private sector or business. And I think about young people not in education, employment, or training. Well, that's an opportunity for business. And so even mobile telephone subscriptions being ridiculously high, this is another area that might be an opportunity for business. So when taking a look at the social progress index for a country and where things are rated low, indeed provides really great ideas that can be handled by the business sector. Another place that we can take a look at is the Global Entrepreneurship Index. And this is something I've been a fan of for a long time. And the Global Entrepreneurship Index is something that takes a look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem that we have in any country that lends support and provides an opportunity for entrepreneurs to survive. And they really have a very good, quite a number of variables that they take a look at. And this is something that the work that's been done here is very, very good. But they take a look at things like opportunity perception. Can the population identify opportunities to start a business? Do they have the skills? Are they willing to take the risk? Do entrepreneurs know each other, and how geographically concentrated are their networks? Do they have cultural support? Are entrepreneurs motivated by opportunity rather than necessity? And does governance make the choice to be an entrepreneur easy? What about technology? Can they rapidly absorb new technology? The human capital side of things, are they highly educated, well trained in business, and able to move freely in the labor market? And what about competition? Taking a look at the unique products and services that others are offering and being able to enter the market with them and compete effectively. How about product innovation? Because businesses are responsible for developing new products, and what does the stage look like there? And that requires a lot of research, right? How about growth? What about growth? Do they intend to grow? And do they have the strategic capacity to achieve that growth? What about internationalization? Do they want to enter global markets, and are they export ready? And what about risk capital? Is capital available for them on an individual and institutional, from individual and institutional investors? So these are a lot of things that the entrepreneurship index takes a look at. And you think about all the different entities that are involved in helping to deliver these things, not just the entrepreneur, but where they want to look for support. What are the prospects in a particular country? So this index just gives a report back on all these countries that they study, and lets you know how entrepreneur friendly and effective that the ecosystem is in providing support to entrepreneurs. So here's back in 2018. This is the most recent index numbers I could find. You see how the top 10 countries are, where they score and how they rank. So you can get a sense what countries are providing a lot of support to their entrepreneurs, or have entrepreneurs that are really ready, to dive into business. And you think about all those variables that I just discussed. And here we can take a look at their rank in that same year on the basis of their region. And this is just giving you a sense of what's going on around the world, and in particular benchmarks that we have, and where they're sitting. So we can see the differences between regions, and in the support that is there for entrepreneurs, help them get off to a good start. And here's a GDP per capita, gives us an idea too of the rank for countries, representative countries within each of these regions. And then how they score too on individual variables, and that list that I provided, some of those are individual variables, and it's the entrepreneur, what are they bringing to the table, but some are institutional variables. When you take a look at risk capital, I mean, those are banks that might be lending money, or they could be, angel investors too, right? So this is just taking a look at what's available to entrepreneurs, and there for help and support, and what they're bringing to the table as well. So kind of gives us an idea of how things are looking, and how challenging it is for entrepreneurs in various countries to get off to a good start. So the third thing that we want to take a look at is the Organizational Excellence Index. And this is a study that I've been leading since 2015. And it's pretty interesting, because it's something that we came up with, those of us that sit on the Organizational Excellence Technical Committee, that's part of the quality management division at ASQ. And the representatives on that executive team are those that represent various excellence models around the world. And we were talking about what could we do that would really contribute to the excellence field. And it was suggested that we take a look at globally, the current state of organizational excellence. And they looked at me because I have an integrated excellence model that brings all the excellence models together and describes the principles and practices that are common to high performing organizations and including in these models, but it also provides implementation guidelines. So at the time I had an automated assessment reporting tool, so it looked like I was the candidate of choice to
Yeah,
do
who on the microphone?
study. And that's what I
Huh?
did
Well,
voluntarily.
you know what I want?
And
And this people
I
food
did,
you normally give me? And
okay.
some jelly?
I'm not sure whose mic
You
is
watch them
on.
so like,
Turn it off.
and like, yeah, you used to know.
Hello.
Dale, can you maybe put something on the
Huh?
chat?
Yeah, I don't think that they're listening in the chat.
Who felt like
They're not
you
seeing it.
Yeah.
remember the bunk up there? Yeah.
It's,
Well, you have a new boss now. So there, I find your boys and them quiet as they come out of there.
Can you see the name?
Huh?
I
yeah,
can't see.
hi, Glenroy London,
Different
if you're on the
section.
call. Hi, Glenroy.
Yeah.
Hello,
Well, I never,
Glenroy.
I always seen them fellas.
Hello, Glenroy.
Yeah. Hello,
Your mic is
hello.
on. Can you please turn it on?
Sorry. My apologies.
Okay, thank you very much. That's okay. We'll get a chance to chat soon. So anyway, I was really excited about doing this study because it had never been done before. What is the current state of organizational excellence in organizations around the world? From those that don't know anything about excellence models all the way up to those that are using them and well versed. So we embarked upon this, and it's been a huge exercise, but it's worthwhile because remember what I said about 10 to 20% of the population, working population, knowing about excellence models. We need to change that number because this information is so valuable to businesses, to government, to nonprofits. So we need to make people more aware of excellence models and invite them to see how they measure up, because we know that excellence models provide a formula for success. We've seen since excellence models were first introduced in the late 1980s, and with the research over time, that if you implement the practices that we have in excellence models, you develop a culture committed to excellence, and you go on to achieve exceptional results across a balanced system of measurement. It's a tried and true formula that's been proven over and over again, and it's something that is really, really important for organizations to know about. So this is part of educating others about excellence models, encouraging them to use them, encouraging them to see how they measure up, and to gradually make sure that they've got these practices put in place. And so I was, pleased to lead this study, and we're still trying to attract respondents, and we've got about 3,000 in our most recent report to report the aggregate results on, but we're still getting a lot of assessment being completed, and so next time we have a chance to report, we'll have even more. So this is just a picture of the model. It's on the inside ring. We've got the principles, the 9 principles that are common to high performing organizations, describes their culture. And we've got in the outer 2 circles, 9 key management areas where we've got all sorts of best management practices. And for micro-size organizations with between 1 and 26 employees, there's 51 practices. And for larger size organizations, there's 102 practices. So there's quite a bit that is involved in an excellence model. But we find that if the way that we work with organizations to implement an excellence model, we found a way to make it more simple and straightforward and time efficient and cost effective. And so that's the good news, is that it doesn't have to be such an enormous expensive undertaking, because we've done we've done a lot towards that end so that we can help organizations with this that want to take full advantage of it. And we've structured everything, just so that you know, structured everything so that it can be done by the do-it-yourselfers out there. And also we offer all sorts of programs if they need a little help, being involved in excellence circles or workshops, reading materials, stories about excellence and so forth, and also offer services if they need a lot of help. They need another temporary member on their management team to help them and guide the way or coach and so forth. So this is what we've tried to do at Organizational Excellence Specialists. So lots of value there on the website in things that you can look at and download and participate in. And most of it's free. That's the good news, right? But we'll charge for services that we provide, such as workshops and consulting assistance and that sort of thing. So this global index, as I said, as of the end of 2022, the principles represent the teaser assessment on the 9 principles that are common to high-performing organizations. And these are the results from 2,145 respondents in the study to give us a read on overall aggregate results. Where is government, business, and nonprofit sitting? And so you can see that business is a little bit ahead in terms of the ratings. And this scale, goes from 0 to 10, and it's kind of a subjective scale where people are asked, is it, to what extent is this principle and all these principles, part of the culture of your organization? To what extent is this characterizing your organization? And it's a gut feel in that we're asking them to use a scale, a low, medium, high scale. So what's their gut feel? And so this is where people are reporting back that it's a medium high, in the medium high range, which is pretty positive. And so it's that's just an indication of the scale. And when we take a look by industry sector, it gets a little bit more interesting. And these industry sectors that we've captured here have got 25 or more respondents. And we see from the ratings by sector that we're seeing some differences, where with some of the highest ratings in the professional, scientific, and technical sector, and some of the lower ratings in agriculture, public administration, which is government. It gives us an idea where different sectors are sitting. And the more respondents we get per sector, the better, especially if we want to report back to that sector in a little bit more detail, or we want to take a look by regional basis or by country basis. So it's really nice to have a robust response in this respect. But here's where we have at least 25 plus, and in some cases, we've got hundreds of respondents, and that's all disclosed in the studies reports, the 3 published reports that can be downloaded from our website under the Global OE Index tab. So it's welcome to download those and take a look at this in a little bit more detail, because it shares the aggregate ratings in a lot more detail, and it also shares open-ended comments from around the world and across industry sectors, so you get a real flavor of the rationale for those ratings. And so when we take a look at the key management areas, there's 9 key management areas, and this is an indication where, again, by the type of organization, where the aggregate ratings for those 9 key management areas are. And you can see that business is ahead of government and non-profit organizations. And we also, it's really important to note, and I noticed this from the very beginning, that when organizations rate themselves on the principles and the key management areas, that we see at least 1 point drop in the aggregate ratings. And I think when they're using a subjective scale and a gut feel to say, this is how our culture is doing, that's one thing. But we use a much more objective scale when we take a look at the extent to which the best practices are deployed throughout the organization, whether they're using a good approach, whether they're starting to get results, whether they have a continuous improvement mindset, versus a corrective or a preventive mindset. So it's the scale we use here goes from 0 to 10, and most of our ratings here in the kind of there's a just beginning, a good start, a doing well, and a high performance kind of categories. Here we're at just the beginning of the doing well, so it gives you a sense of where organizations are. So if we take a look at the key management areas by specific industry sector, here we see, the electricity, gas, steam, air conditioning sector is edging out in front, and that's a pretty regulated industry in a lot of places, so that's kind of understandable. But we see there's some room for improvement when we take a look down at public administration, because that's a rating that's down in the good start range. So some work to do there to make sure that all the practices are fully deployed throughout the organization. So it's very interesting when you take a look at these by, industry sector, because it starts to show the variation that exists out there. Now, if we take a look at some of the high performing organizations, I've just got 3 examples here for you today. And this is something that organizations in the excellence field have really focused on over the years. They like to talk about their models and train people how to use their models, which is great, and get organizations off to a good start in using their models to help them perform better. And they like to talk about their high performing organizations that have earned national excellence awards. And so we've got those organizations that are up there on a pedestal, like this is what we strive for, which is great. And so we can use that as a comparison and to learn from as well. But I think that the work that we've been doing kind of sheds light on, how are everyday organizations doing, from those that have never heard about excellence models to those that are very high performing in this respect. So it's really good to take a look at the entire continuum. And so this is where we're at the upper end of the continuum, those high performing organizations, what can we learn about them? And this is where, we want to learn from them. We want to benchmark against them. And this is going to help us in our journey learning. But learning too, I really have to emphasize that a lot of learning comes from within the organization too, from people doing the work, people filling out an assessment, employees being included in that, the suggestions and ideas that they have, the innovative ideas, innovations that they bring to the table. That's really, really important too. So let's not lose sight of that. But let's learn in this segment from some high performing organizations. And first one I want to talk about is PricewaterhouseCoopers. They've got a public sector practice, and this is they've done some amazing work over time. And yes, it's one of the big consulting accounting firms, and the work that they've done with the Baldrige model in particular has showing their scores on their engagement management process that they use has moved from have increased 50%, from 2008 to near 100% for the fiscal years 2010 to 2014, which is pretty dramatic. And the percentage of responders that say that PwC needs improvement decreased from 73% in 2011 to 0 in 2014. So look at that dramatic change. They say that the strategic planning has helped them deal with the challenges that they were faced by the drops in federal funding for consulting services and the pressure for lower rates because of their competitors offering similar services at lower rates. That's a lot to contend with for these big firms. But they managed through the use of an excellence model to grow their revenue continually from 2005 to 2014 from 41 million to 265 million, which is pretty impressive. And they also learned staff certifications were really important, and that they steadily increased the staff certifications from 2008 to 2014 by 424%. And this coincides, it's positively related to their increasing revenue trends. So there's something to learn, if you're got a consulting firm, some of the important things that they've been able to get out of using an excellence model. And at Organizational Excellence Specialists, we use our own excellence model, and we've been working on implementing it over the years. So, we can walk the talk, and we've done well with that. So it's always nice to be able to have the direct experience doing this rather than just talking about others, right? Here's another one of my favorite examples from Canada, Delta Hotels. They're a Canadian award recipient, and they've really enjoyed improving levels of performance since implementing an excellence model, and they're really a standout in the industry hospitality sector as a sought out employer of choice. They deal with lots of people. They're submitting their CVs and wanting to work at Delta Hotels, and they've really seen exceptional ratings across a balanced system of measurement over time. And years ago, I spoke to the general managers of the Delta Hotels in the province of Alberta, and I talked to about 6 or 8 of them, and I said to each one of them, just ask them one question, what's the best thing that has happened at your hotel with regards to, implementing the excellence model? And each one of them said something different. They certainly said, yes, this helped us to develop a culture committed to excellence, but each GM mentioned something different, like a different key management area. Some said they made great strides in the leadership area or the customers area, the employees area, work processes area, so it was very interesting that each hotel on its own had its strengths and opportunities for improvement, and they got something very specific if they were to name just one thing out of it, which was interesting because you can't make assumptions about the entire chain. Each one of the hotels in the chain, they've got a lot in common, but they do have strengths and opportunities for improvement. And some of the things that Delta Hotels does in terms of the way they work is they have a strategy to attract, engage, and retain people, and they make sure that they've got good processes in place towards that end, and they're really focused on continual improvement. They use their website as a powerful tool for recruitment and use the video clip of the CEO speaking about Delta, pictures of the people, employee testimonials that really help speak to the jobs and the experiences that people will have working there. They're a really flat organization, and employees are empowered to make decisions that affect them and their customers. And employees can walk through the door and talk to the CEO anytime. So kind of an open door policy, which is fantastic. The mid-managers communicate about the brand and the culture and the strategy to frontline staff. So everybody's in the know, and they have quarterly town meetings where they share business information and results. And it's also a place where people can bring forward ideas and suggestions. The third example I've got here today is Mesa. They're an organization in the United States that provides products and services to help with corrosion and to maintain the integrity of assets, things like pipelines and storage facilities and processing facilities, that part of the energy infrastructure in the United States. So they use the Baldrige model, and their market growth increased from 14 million in 2018 to 16 million in 2019, which they were really outpacing their competitors in terms of the percentage of growth. And they found too that their overall revenue per employee had exceeded multiple benchmarks since 2016. And more than $100,000 than a competitive benchmark. So that was pretty impressive. They've also retained 100% of their key customers in their services segment since 2018, and 97% of their customers in the materials segment, from 2017 to 2019. They're one of the best places to work at the 90th percent benchmark. And 95% of Mesa's employees agreed that the safety culture was a top organizational priority. So they really, by communicating so well with their employees, they really get them focused on the value, side of things and strategic imperatives. So their average customer satisfaction for their services has trended at more than 4.5 out of 5 since 2017. So very, very impressive. So big question. How on earth do we make this happen in our organizations, in our business organizations? And we've got a process that we like to use that doesn't take any time at all and provides a game plan for you. And it starts with an orientation for your employees, because we really like leaders to agree to include employees, the cross-section of employees, if not invite all employees to participate in a self-assessment of the organization so they can provide their ratings and their open-ended comments on these principles and practices, and we get everybody's input. And so we need to orient the employees to, well, what is this excellence model and what's in it, and these rating skills that we use, so that they're properly informed before they participate in the self-assessment. And then they can participate in the online self-assessment in a confidential manner, because we never reveal who said what. But we do generate a report that is just full of valuable information. And we say, here's the aggregate results. Here's what the ratings are for your organization on the extent to which the principles are in place and the best management practices have been deployed. And here's all the open-ended comments that people have about these things. And for those low-rated items, practices that you need to work on, here are some step-by-step action plans. And the way that we like to do this, each action plan to address the low-rated practices is basically on one sheet of paper, and it provides a methodology to do that, and it allows the business to assign an individual or a team to work on it, a time frame that they work on it. It indicates the method of measurement where they can report back on progress that they're going to be using, and also, are there any out-of-pocket costs? And generally, there's really no out-of-pocket costs when you work on putting an excellence model in place. Your employees are capable of doing good work and following the action plans. And there may be a few things where you say, gee, we need a little help from outside. We need someone to train us more on this topic, or we need some help with this because we don't have time to do it. So really, it ends up being not costly at all in terms of implementation, but what it does take is a very small percentage of time of employees that are working to help address the gaps. So this is a very, simple, straightforward, time-efficient, cost-effective way to do this. So it's something that we've developed along with the automated assessment reporting system that we've got to help you develop a roadmap and action it right away, and then ask for help if you need it, or carry on on your own if you don't. So just a few words about our team before I finish off here. Our team, we've got licensed professionals around the world, and they've worked on earning either a registered or a certified organizational excellence specialist designation, and so they're there to help organizations implement the model, or work on a key management area, or work on a practice that's keeping them up at night. We've got a turnkey toolkit that helps with the journey, the publication that is freely available on our website on the homepage that they can download, that I spoke about earlier, with the definitions of principles and practices and the implementation guidelines, and the combined nature of bringing all the excellence models together. We've got a workshop series. There's 10 workshops, because we find that organizations, they like the nice overview or holistic workshop that talks about, well, what is excellence and how is our organization doing and where do we need to go next. But they also need the modular workshops, because most of the organizations I've worked with over time always have a couple of key management areas where they need to learn a little bit more about it. And so we've got these modular workshops in each of the key management areas that allow people to learn a little bit more, especially about the implementation of the practices for governance or leadership or customers, employees, work processes, suppliers and partners, resource management and continuous improvement and performance measurements. So those are there to provide the help. And then we've got in our community, we've got also research team members that have helped with the global research study over time. Our core newsletter team that put together a peer-reviewed publication and bring forth interesting articles and news about what's going on in the excellence community around the world. And our group also participates on global boards and committees, which are devoted to excellence and benchmarking and helping others improve their performance. And our toolkit's been selected actually by the ISCM Foundation for use in nation building projects, where we go in and do big projects that'll make a big difference to a nation. And then we put in place a business excellence center that will, where we train local trainers, and they'll use the toolkit to pay it forward, so to speak, so that their working population can learn more about excellence and be able to action it and use it in their organizations, whether it's government, business, or nonprofit, for their for the good going on. So it's all about paying it forward. And just recently, our toolkit was selected too by a group that is doing work in developing countries with entrepreneurship training programs. So this is going to be ideal that they're going to incorporate this in the work they do to help support, their entrepreneurial communities. So we're really happy about that. And we were asked recently too, I was asked to publish a chapter on organizational excellence in the Global Encyclopedia of Public Administration, Public Policy and Governance by Springer International. And this is a great encyclopedia with all sorts of topics that really help the public sector work better. So with that, that's kind of the short Reader's Digest version of what we've been doing, but there's lots more on the website. And why don't we turn it over now to have a conversation about this presentation and about business excellence in general. So with that, we'll open it up, and I'll ask Dale if there's been any questions in the chat, or we've got a small group here today. Why don't we just open it up for discussion?
Okay, thanks, Don. The only question we got so far is, are presentation materials available to everyone that's on the line today, that they will get them in the next day or so once we follow up? And the answer is yes.
Yes, of course. I'll send out a PDF of the slides, so you've got them there as a reminder. And we've recorded the presentation, and so I'll stop the recording right now, as a matter of fact, and we'll be able to circulate that as well, just in case you've got colleagues that want to listen.